Hey guys, I'm Kendra.
Hi, I'm Mercedes, and this week we're talking about the sports romance classic Love and Basketball.
It really is a classic, but first, Mercedes, let's kick it off with our celebrity crush of the week. Who you crushing on this week, girl?
Oh my goodness, Kendra. So I'm crushing on Jin from BTS. I don't know if you listen to BTS.
I
Oh
love how
my
much of a
gosh.
boy band fan you are.
Oh yeah, boy bands are my life. If
Mhm.
you've never listened to BTS, I say give him a search. Jin is the oldest one. He loves to call himself worldwide handsome, and he's correct. He is correct.
Facts, 100%. Oh
Exactly.
gosh. Okay, I gotta listen to BTS. We did an episode when I was working on my old job. We did an episode on them, but I have not taken the time to listen to them. So apologies, BTS, if you're listening to this.
Great.
Um, okay, Mercedes, ask me who I have a crush on this week.
Kendra, who's your crush this week?
Okay, wait. First of all, have to give a shout out to my crush of the week, Paul Mescal from Normal People, because it's his birthday today, actually.
Happy birthday, Promise Girl.
Happy birthday, Paul. So I was in Sligo just the other I left Sligo this morning actually in Ireland. And I went to Sligo because Normal People is my favorite limited series, and I really feel like it changed my life. I just relate to the character of Marianne so much, just like the tumultuous relationship she has with her family, getting teased in high school, and then finding herself in college. She has this line there that's just like, typical me, went to college and got pretty. And I was like, I feel like that was me. I went to college and I found myself. Like I finally found a place where I fit in and I was good at it. And I've been rewatching Normal People because being in Sligo and watching Normal People just hits different.
Oh my
So
god.
it was just amazing to be there. So Paul is my celebrity crush of the week. And also again, happy birthday.
I love him and his thighs. You know, he actually, my best friend, they both went to like the same like theater camp or something together. And I guess he's always just been like cool and like hot.
Which like does not surprise me, but also I hope he's a nice person.
I believe he's nice. I feel it. Like he just
Mhm.
seems kind.
Yeah. I mean, Irish people are just tend to be just incredibly kind people
Yeah.
anyways, so would not be surprised. All right, guys. So we are going to move over to the TLDR. This is where we summarize the movie for anyone who has not seen it. Also, if you have not seen Love and Basketball, spoiler alert, spoilers are coming, but you can stream it on HBO Max.
Yeah.
Take away, Mercedes.
Oh my goodness. So this movie is broken down into four quarters, just like a basketball game. So
Mhm.
we'll start off with the first quarter. Begins in 1981 when 11-year-old Monica Wright, played by Kyla Pratt, moves to Los Angeles into the house right next door to young Quincy McCall, played by Glendon Chapman. She dreams of being the first woman in the NBA, and he dreams of being just like his NBA playing dad, played by Dennis Haysbert. The two become rivals on the basketball court, and quickly after meeting, their interactions are always ending in fights, even after their first kiss. I love it. And then we cut to the second quarter, 1988. They're seniors in high school, both the stars of their basketball teams at Crenshaw High. Quincy is played by Omar Epps now and is popular, getting attention from college scouts, while Monica, played by Sanaa Lathan, is fighting to play and getting criticized for her temper. They're still bickering, neighborhood friends, but she also definitely has bottled up feelings for him that she's just keeping to herself. But after a school dance, Quincy's view on Monica changes and their night turns romantic after they both share that they're going to USC to play basketball, which is so exciting. Cut to third quarter. Quincy is the starting freshman star player, while Monica is working 10 times harder just to get off the bench. After Quincy discovers his dad's infidelity, he expects Monica to break the rules and really comfort him. And when she refuses to focus on her sport, he closes off, cheats on her, drops out to go to the NBA. Then we go to the fourth quarter, which starts in 1993. We see Monica post college playing international basketball, pro basketball in Barcelona. Quincy is engaged to Kira, played by Tyra Banks, and struggling to play for the Lakers. But when he finally gets playing time, he tears his ACL. Monica then quits basketball and moves home. They actually reunite in the hospital where she finds out he's engaged. She's really frustrated trying to manage life without basketball. She's really grappling with her bitterness toward her mother, but who actually ends up helping her realize that she can't stop fighting for what she loves and also who she loves. So Monica challenges Quincy to a game of one-on-one to win his heart. The two play the most high stakes game ever, which ends with the two together again, and then cut to 1998. Monica is shown playing in the WNBA for the LA Sparks with Quincy and their daughter cheering for her on the sidelines. I love it.
Love it. Perfect ending to a perfect
Mhm.
movie. This is the 2000 directorial debut of Gina Prince Bythewood, who also wrote this movie and most notably directed Beyond the Lights. Which, first of all, I just want to give a shout out to Gugu Mbatha-Raw, who is one of the most underrated actresses in the industry. Gina also directed The Secret Life of Bees and the Netflix film Old Guard, starring Charlize Theron. This movie was produced by Spike Lee, and I'm sorry, but if you don't know who that is, I really can't help you.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So there are so many fun facts and interesting industry facts about this movie, right? So
Yeah.
I actually read that the director saw over 700 people for the role of Monica because Spike Lee, the producer, thought the lead actress should have actual basketball skills. And so Gina interviewed like actresses, athletes, people who have never acted before. And funny enough, Sanaa Lathan had never played basketball before this movie. So she worked with a basketball coach for about 2 months
Yeah.
before doing
I
this.
love it when they show her, like, running onto the court with the sparks, and everyone is so much taller than her.
Yeah.
It's so funny. You're like, I know, I know." The fact that she learned basketball for this role too is so impressive just because, like, I mean, it's not an easy sport. It's not an easy thing to just, like, pick up.
I know, but
Yeah,
I think that's the case with a lot of, actresses. I remember Natalie Portman learned ballet for Black Swan, and
definitely.
Margot Robbie learned how to ice skate for I, Tonya. And I just think it's so interesting when, as an older person, you can just completely learn a new skill like that.
Yeah.
Because I think Sanaa was already like at least 20 or 30 in this movie. So
Mhm. And, Gina Prince Blythe, her screenplay was actually turned down by, like, multiple studios,
Mhm.
and then she ended up going to the Sundance Institute lab program where they held a reading, and that's what got Spike Lee's attention, and that's when he was like, "Okay, my production company, we're gonna pick you up, we're gonna do this," which is so impressive. It just shows, like, look for these programs when you have, like, a screenplay out there and you wanna get it out there, like, really, like, bring it in, collaborate.
Yeah, and also just an encouraging word to any aspiring filmmakers, like, don't ever give up. You're gonna get, like, a million rejections, but it just takes one yes. Do you remember that meme of Lady Gaga during her
Oh my
press tour?
you only need one one person in the room.
99 people can say no, you just need the one yes. That's what I'm reiterating right now.
Oh, I love it. Also, if you're
Mhm.
wondering why Monica, when she's 11, it was, like, so, focused on being the first woman in the NBA, it's because the WNBA hadn't even been founded until 1996, and this movie
Wow.
starts off in 1981. So, that's a 15-year period where, like, there's just n where she's just, like, reaching for, like, professional basketball in, like, the world of men. So, it's tough.
I can't even believe I was alive when the
I know, yeah.
WNBA was
We were
founded.
both alive. It's shocking.
It's
Shocking.
shocking. I don't know how I feel about that. Um, just another thing too that I found really interesting was the scene where Quincy pushes Monica and she gets a scar on her face when they're
Yeah.
little. That scene was actually added in because Sanaa Lathan already has a scar on her face, so they want to like kind of match it. I thought that was
Continuity.
interesting. Yeah.
That is really clever. Also, Kyla Pratt, like, she was so popular at this time,
Oh
like, The
my
Proud Family,
gosh.
One on One. I think
One on one.
yes,
Yes.
I think both those shows started, like, a year after this movie came out, and she had already been in, like, Doctor Dolittle, and, like, so she was that like, people knew her.
Mhm.
Also, did you know that Lathan and Epps were actually dating when they were filming this movie?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
read
yeah.
that.
They met when they were on the set of The Wood, and they actually didn't let anyone on set of Love and Basketball know until, like, they were both cast in their roles, just so, like, it wouldn't mess up anything for them.
Aw, so that's why their chemistry is so palpable. That's why
I
this is a cult classic in the Black community because they already had that love there, you could just feel it. I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool, like you were saying, they acted together in The Wood, when actors act together in content multiple times. So, Alfre Woodard, who plays Monica's mother, and Sanaa Lathan have actually played mother and daughter in 3 different movies,
Oh
and
my
that was so cool to
goodness.
me.
Oh, I love that, I never knew that.
Mhm. I know, it was a lot. You have anything else you wanna add, Mercedes?
No, those are all my fun facts. I mean, I could go on and on about this movie, I'm so excited to
Seriously.
talk about it more. It's been such a staple for me my whole life, so I'm stoked.
Absolutely. Let's jump into Time Capsule, guys. This is just a time where we try to reflect on where we were at the time that this movie came out. So, again, this movie came out in the year 2000, Mercedes. How old were you? What were you doing?
Oh my goodness, so I was 4 when this movie came out.
Oof.
Um, yeah, so this movie is actually really special to me because I grew up playing sports. I will say I was never good at sports, but I did grow up playing sports. And for me, like this movie combined like the genres that both my parents loved. My dad loves a sports movie and my mom loves a romance. So
Mhm.
I grew up watching it with them. it always reminds me of, like, basketball practices with my dad as my coach or, like, watching games with my parents. We would always go to, like, the college games because New Mexico doesn't have, like, a professional team, and then this movie
Sorry to
always
listen.
reminds me of my, like, magenta and white Carmelo Air Jordan sneakers that I got when I
Mm.
was 7. Every year, my dad would get me a new pair of basketball sneakers, and he would not let me wear them off the court until after the season, even as, like, a six-year-old. And then, like, once the season was over, I was like, "Yes, I can sport my cool sneakers around." Like, they were always so fresh. Oh my god, I loved them. Yeah,
That is
that's what this movie
so
reminds me
funny.
of.
Gosh, I don't okay. I won't talk about the year 2000, but I'll tell you around the time that I know for a fact I probably watched this movie for the first
Yeah.
time because this was a hard time in my life, like, reflecting back on it now. So, I bet you anything the first time I saw this movie was probably around 2005, 2006, which was when I was in 8th grade, because during that time, I was just getting teased a lot at school for, quote, unquote, "acting white."
Oh my god.
So I know this is a podcast, so you guys can't see me, but am, in fact, a Black woman, and I got teased a lot for acting white, like, kids would say I talked white, I acted white, they would call me Oreo, like, black on the outside and white on the inside. And it was just so frustrating for me.
Mm.
So I remember very consciously starting to be like, "Oh, I'm gonna act more black," which, by the way, that does not mean anything whatsoever. Like,
Yeah,
that you cannot act as a certain race.
exactly.
And so I remember I started watching BET every single day, and that was kind of my way of combating the negative stigma of, like, kids making fun of me because I was white. I grew up in a predominantly white area. And so I would get out of school at, like, 2 PM, and I'd go home and watch BET until, like, 9 or 9:30 PM
Oh my
every
goodness.
single day, like, my entire 8th grade year. It's so funny, Mercedes, because I still remember, like, the schedule, the lineup of BET during that time. So for, like, 2 to 4 was nonstop music videos, and then 4 to 6 was Rap City with Big Tigger, and then 6 to 7:30 was 106 in Park with Free and AJ,
Oh my
and then
god.
7:30 yeah, at, like, 7:30, they always played a BET like, a movie,
Yeah.
um, and I'm absolutely positive that was the first time I ever saw Love and Basketball was during that time. So
I think it's so special, like, the movies that become comfort watches in those really vulnerable
Mhm,
times where
mhm.
you're struggling a lot emotionally, and, like, these movies really pull through, especially this one, comes in as, like, just such a safe space.
Yeah, absolutely, and I feel like
Yeah.
there are a lot of Black rom-coms that hopefully we'll talk about in future episodes that I know
Yeah.
for a fact I watched around this time period that ended up shaping my not only my life, but my identity as well as a Black woman. So I'm very, very grateful for them. Um
Yeah. This is also, like, just a movie where anytime if I'm somewhere where there's cable and it's on, we're watching it. Like, it's
Yes.
just one of those movies, you know?
Yes, yeah, exactly, exactly. Do you remember who you had a crush on during this time?
Okay, so I don't remember who I had a crush on. I do remember when I was 4, this is when I discovered NSYNC, which started my love of
Mm,
boy bands, which
mhm.
is no secret. I love boy bands. I was also at this time obsessed with, like, Grease and, like, The Mask of Zorro and, like, Titanic and the Selena movie. And also, like, I was an only child for 11 years, so I watched a lot of movies with my parents. Just
Mm,
whatever they wanted to watch, so I was
yeah.
watching, like, movies that probably other four-year-olds weren't watching, but plus, like, the Disney classics and all of those. So I don't really have a crush. Do you remember a crush?
Okay, this wasn't a crush on a person, but this was a crush on a career, essentially.
Ooh.
So, the year 2000 was actually the year that I started performing and acting. I remember I acted in my church's play.
Oh,
Um, I was a sheep.
amazing.
And that was a time I decided, like, "Okay, I'm going to school in New York." Like, that was it. And I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna" I know. I was like, "I'm gonna go to Juilliard, I'm gonna be on Broadway." And
Juilliard, yes.
it's so funny that I made this decision when I was 8 years old, and I actually did end up going to school in New York. I didn't go to Juilliard, but I went to Syracuse, shout out SU, best school in the nation. Uh, but it's just so funny how, the choices that you make at such a young age really define you and really shape you. And I'm curious if you just, like if there are any big decisions that you made when you were a kid that just, like, have molded you and affected you now as an adult that you remember?
Definitely. So when I was younger, I always wanted to be a detective and a
Mhm.
movie director
Yes.
because, for one, I'm nosy. And then the other part of me, I love to make up stories. So I always wanted to make movies out of, like, the mysteries I would solve. And that was, like, my dream life. And then
Mhm.
now I'm a researcher because I'm also nosy. And I also just like most of the research I do is in film and television, and I also like creatively write and directing is still a major goal for me at some point,
Mhm.
and it's something that I'm like actively working towards. So I think those things stick with you. I think they kind
Yeah.
of leave you a little bit in those like middle school years of insecurity, and then they come back and you're like, yeah, no, I'm doing this for like young Mercedes because she
Yeah,
loves it.
exactly. And I
Yeah.
think too, it's really powerful when you write it down at that age too, because I remember like writing in my diary
Yes.
I talked about in the first episode, just being like, I want to go to school in New York, I want to be a performer, I want to do
Mhm.
this, and it has power, it holds power. So anyone listening to this who has kids, make sure you have them write down their goals, write down their dreams, because it'll be nice to reflect back on them when they're older.
It's always so fun.
All right, guys, it's time for the Rom-Com Hall of Fame. But first, of course, Mercedes, we always have to roast this film. Now, this film came out 22 years ago. So tell me, in your opinion, what didn't age well for you?
Okay, so I will preface this with saying that I don't have a lot to roast. I have a lot to rave about.
Mm,
But I think the hardest parts for me are like the how this movie unpacks like womanhood and like the double standards and within like gender on screen, but
mhm.
without, especially since this movie has so much to do with athletics.
Yeah,
And all of these things are still happening. And but without those concepts, this movie wouldn't be what it is and it wouldn't carry the depth that it does. So I'm grateful for that, but it's also just so frustrating to watch it on screen because you're like, "Oh my god, I wanna pull my
yeah.
car out."
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's so funny because the roast for me, it's just such a conundrum because it's something that I don't like, but also like something that we need. So for me,
Mhm,
I didn't really like necessarily the representation of the mothers in this movie. I
mhm,
understand it was a sign of the times, but they're both like rich, stay at home moms who just aren't appreciated. One is constantly being cheated on, the other one's value isn't seen by her husband.
yeah,
But I feel like it's annoying too because during this time, there was a lot of controversy because Halle Berry became the first Black actress to win an Oscar for Best Actress in a Leading Role for Monsters Ball. And that movie came out in 2002. And there was kind of a lot of controversy around that because she played a prostitute. And we just felt like, okay, the only time Hollywood wants to reward Black women with accolades is when they're playing this type of role. So for these two women, for these two Black women to be playing rich stay at home moms, it's like, yeah, well, we kinda needed that, right? Because
yeah,
Black women at the time were just playing slaves or maids or whatever, like, there was this whole stigma around who Black women could play,
mhm.
but, like, rich Brentwood stay-at-home moms was not one of those archetypes. So, it's kind of like a roast and also kind of like, well, yeah, it's nice to have that kind of, like, representation as well, you know?
Yeah. No, definitely. I think just in this movie, there are so many takes on gender and femininity and womanhood that
Mhm.
are just, like, frustrating truths.
Yeah.
And, I don't know, like, it's so much more than just, like, a love story between athletes. Like, this
Mhm.
is a coming of age story, and this is like, you're really seeing these characters grow. And without these elements, like, without Monica's mom being kind of like the antithesis of what Monica was, she wouldn't have,
Mhm.
like, the drive to, like, go forth as an athlete as strong as she did because she really used that as her motivation as, like versus Quincy who wanted to be just like his dad. Monica
Mhm.
really didn't wanna be anything like her mom and then realizes at the end, like, "Oh, actually, like, I need to give my mom a lot more credit."
Mhm.
But it is like, without that, you wouldn't have, like, Monica doing what she does.
Mhm.
So it's a
Exactly.
tough one. Yeah, like, our
It's a tough
criticisms
one.
are, like, necessary in this
Yeah,
movie.
but also I feel like it is something to note that this movie does age very well. And when we're talking about
Mhm.
things that age well, can we talk about how every freaking actor in this movie has aged perfectly?
Oh
Like
my gosh, they're
fine wine,
beautiful.
something
Beautiful.
out of like a storybook. Sanaa Lathan is 50 years old, looks straight up gorgeous. Like
Yeah.
Omar Epps still looks good. Alfred Woodard, like everyone still look. Dennis Haysbert, oh my gosh, holla at me, my goodness. So I just I love that the whole cast just, like, still looks absolutely incredible. They're also working too, you also see them in a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And I just think, you know, also I just wanna praise this movie for being very progressive with their, you know, tones of feminism that's going on in
Mhm.
this movie, just, like, giving a Black woman big and bold dreams and to chase after them. It didn't have to do with the man, it had to do solely with, like, what she wanted,
Yeah.
what she was passionate about. That is huge. That is
And
huge.
also, like, the way it just, like, surprises you at the end where the whole time you're expecting Quincy to really, like, flourish in the NBA, and then it turns
Mhm.
it on its head, and you're seeing Monica out there and him on the sidelines cheering her on. That's so it was so wonderful to see as, like, a child, and it's still
Mhm.
so fulfilling to see now. And the fact that, like, none of these like, this isn't a story of, like, harm or, like, the story of, like, real sadness. This is a story of just, like, 2 people coming into their own and,
Mhm.
like, finding the people that they love and also, like, fighting for the thing they love, which is,
Yeah.
like, their sport, and I don't know, it's and their passion, and it's just so lovely. I also just, like, love how vastly different this movie is, compared to other movies about athletes, because
Mm.
every sports scene in this movie really drives the plot in a way that a lot of sports movies don't. Where
Mhm.
this movie isn't about the final game where the buzzer's gonna go off and you're waiting for that big, like,
Yeah.
cheer from the game they're playing is to show their emotions, their attitude, and their behavior. Like, you're driving character through
Mhm.
this, and it builds on
Yeah.
character, and you're never taken out of the plot in, like, the game scenes. Like, it
Mhm.
really is just building on it to show the personality. Like, you're seeing Monica's frustration because she's just like there's so much on her plate and like she feels like you can feel it on her and you see it versus like Quincy who is like consistently getting praise.
Mhm.
And I don't know, like I just love that. And that's such a gift from our director, our writer and director, like there's so much emotion depicted through these like subtle nonverbals on the court. And
Mhm.
like without her gaze and her pen on this movie, like we wouldn't have had that because she herself was an athlete. So she
Exactly.
understands it and she understands like those emotions and everything. I could go on and on. I'm sorry. I just
No,
want to rave forever.
I love it. I love it. Snaps to Gina Prince Bythewood for being amazing at writing and directing this movie. That's iconic, and you got Mercedes rambling. I wanna ask you though, Mercedes, what sport, if any, would you want to fall in love over?
Oh my God. I mean, okay, basketball definitely because I love basketball. It's my favorite sport. It's the
Mhm.
most entertaining to watch because it goes so fast. Like I understand football, soccer, but it like takes so much longer. They're such long games. And I think basketball like it's such a contact sport too. So like that's what kind of makes this movie so much more sensual, even the scenes
Mhm.
that aren't like really like sensual scenes and
Mhm.
intimate scenes. They're on the court and like just the way the bodies move and the way that camera work follows them, like, it just
Mhm.
you feel it, and you feel the tension there.
Mhm.
And I guess basketball, but also, like, I've been crushing on a lot of skateboarders for the past year, so
You
maybe
have.
that.
You have. Yes, you have.
What about you?
Okay, I think if I could insert myself into any rom-com sports movie, it would be Step Up. I wanna fall in love over
Oh my
dance
god,
and,
I
like,
didn't
hip
even
hop.
think about Step Up. Oh, that is
Yes.
such a good one.
Oh, we have to do
Truly,
Step
every
Up.
time I watch Step Up, I think I could do it, and, like, I used to
Mhm.
dance when I was younger, but, like, I'm not any good, but there I am at the end of the movie, I'm like, "I could do it," or,
I
like, the
could
end of
do
the
it.
second one where they're doing the chest breath.
Yeah.
I'm like, "Nah, I could do it, I could definitely do it."
I always see myself as the lead character in, like, a dance movie, but I think also, like, figure skating too? Like, I don't
Ooh,
know. I just something where it's, like, close contact and you guys are intimate.
yeah.
Like, that's a sport I would want to fall in love over. Also, when I think of traditional sports like soccer and basketball and, like, maybe even softball, I can't do any of that. I
I'm
can't
so
do any of that.
I will say, if you ever catch me willingly breaking a sweat to win a man, please just sit me down and make me reflect on my life choices, because something is deeply wrong with me at that point in my life.
Mercedes, I got you. Don't even worry about it. Don't even worry about it. Oh my gosh, speaking of men, um, I always love this quote, in the movie, that Monica says. She goes, "You jump in some guy's space, you talk smack, and you get pat on your ass. But because I'm female, I get told to calm down, act like a lady. I'm a ball
Yeah.
player." I love that quote.
I love it, and it's the force in which she says it too, like, you feel it, and you just feel all of her frustration, because also Quincy, like, has these expectations that, like, he's supposed to be supported by her the whole time, where that's
Mhm,
not really given back to her even before they're dating,
mhm.
and it's not really given to her through most people, just
Yeah,
through her passion, so, I feel for her.
no. Do you have a favorite quote in this movie?
Okay, my favorite quote is "All's fair in love and basketball, baby," and they say
Yeah.
it's said twice, and it's said during their cute little dorm strip basketball game, one-on-one, and then it's said at the end when they're playing the game, and, like, it's the most stressful, tense moment because you really think that he, like, does not want to be with her, and
Mhm.
she's losing, and then My second favorite quote is said, and that's double or nothing right at the end because she loses the one-on-one game.
No, because I love when she's like, "I'll play you one-on-one for your heart." I was like, "Oh, I love it."
But for your heart. You're like, "Yes."
But I will also say, okay, my last favorite quote of this movie, it's when Monica and Sidra are in Spain and they run into each other. And Sidra's like, them Italian boys, they love them some black women. They can't get enough of me. And I cannot confirm or deny this movie may have been the reason Italy was my very first solo travel trip. Just
Hell yeah.
saying.
You're like, "I need to test this theory of
I need to test this theory, exactly. So if this movie popped up on your Tinder feed, would you swipe left or right?
I'm always swiping right forever."
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you?
100%. But that's because, like, representation matters so much. And again, another message to any aspiring filmmakers listening right now, please
Yeah.
always remember representation is so important. And this is just such a cult classic within the Black community. It just shows an independent young Black woman and her strengths and her goals. And that's so admirable. It just shows that love also never truly fades. So I am always forever swiping right on this
Yes.
movie.
We love seeing Monica just get everything she wants and deserves. Like, it is the most fulfilling thing.
Exactly, but it's also the hard work that she puts in behind it, right? It's not just handed to her. She
Yeah.
works her butt off to get these things. It just shows, again, another message of don't give up. Like, stay at it. You got
Yeah.
this. All right, guys, we're going to jump into couples therapy. Mercedes and I just like to play therapists and give advice to the characters on how they can improve their relationship. And I'm curious to hear what you think, Mercedes. Like, what advice would you give to Quincy and Monica if they were sitting in your chair, your therapy chair right now?
So, something I really appreciate about this movie is how it takes its time and you really get to feel how much time goes on. And you see
Mhm,
these characters grow and learn about themselves and learn how to express themselves. But really, like, I want to see better communication between the two. These are two
mhm,
people who hold back a lot. And yes, they share the same language of basketball, but they
mhm.
really don't speak their truth as often as I think they should. And even when they do, it's not, like, timely, I guess, like, it's always, like, years later or months later, like, I wanna hear you talk about this now and, like, really have, like, deeper conversations that aren't, like, built in this, like, hostility or frustration because someone's not coming through to you in ways that you didn't even express that you need them to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I want to preface my advice by saying I really don't think anyone should be with someone from the time they're 11 because I just think you
Yeah.
turn into a completely different person. And that's just really hard to grow
Hmm,
together. And love is already hard enough. So I think it was actually really good for them to take a 5-year break and go and live their own separate lives and kind of
definitely.
develop on their own as people. And so I feel like my advice for Monica and Quincy would be to always keep falling in love with the different versions of yourselves. So I love that at the end we see Monica as a big basketball star, but that won't be forever, right?
Mhm.
Everyone will continue to grow and continue to change. And I've said it once, Mercedes, and I will say it again over and over. All a relationship is, all love is saying yes every single day, saying, yes, I'm going to be there for you. Yes, I'm going to love you. Yes, I'm going to support you. And I just hope for Monica and Quincy that they can continue to make that decision every day with each version of themselves that they encounter.
Yes. There's also the concept of cheating or the topic of cheating that comes in
Mm.
here.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we need Quincy to not cheat anymore.
This is true. Yeah. Okay. So when we're talking about communication, cheating is never the answer for lack of communication. You
Yes,
should always talk about your feelings. But yeah, he absolutely did cheat on Kira with Monica at the end because he was still with
yeah,
her and he hadn't called off the wedding and the engagement or anything.
exactly. And I don't know, like, I want these 2 to just, like, keep flourishing. So I'm just like, do not just, like, have faith in each other and, like,
Mhm.
trust each other with your emotions.
100%. What do you think their love languages are, Monica and Quincy?
Okay, so definitely this movie's rooted in quality time. But I
Mhm.
think like, Quincy gives a lot of words of affirmation to Monica because everything he says, she really takes to heart. And, like, Monica responds and, like, really takes it seriously. Like, any of his, like, criticism of her on the court or, like, these things, like, he really, like, is honest with her and she takes that in and, like, really lets it sink in.
Mhm.
I think he attempts acts of service and, really performs romance in a way that emulates who he thinks his dad is.
Mhm.
But I think him giving words to Monica is most beneficial and, like, the thing that he's best at, but he definitely needs quality time and acts
Mm.
of service, I'd say.
I agree with you. I definitely think he needs quality time, but I also think he gives physical touch. I feel like
Ooh,
I feel like every time, that scene where they're like walking out of the quad and they like, he pulls her close and they fall in the grass together. I just
mm,
feel like he's constantly touching her in some way. So I feel like,
yeah,
I think Quincy gives physical touch, but he does equality time because if we think about it, the whole reason Quincy was upset with Monica was because he felt like she wasn't there for him when he was
yeah,
going through the stuff with his dad. And so he needs quality time. He needs to see her. He needs to just have that physical support there. And then with Monica, I think she actually gives words of affirmation, but I also feel like she needs that back because
mhm,
Quincy did not do a good job of communicating with her, and she needs to hear the honest truth to know that she's loved. Like, words need to be spoken very clearly to her. Like, Monica, I'm done with you. Or Monica, I love you and I need you to do this. Like, I feel like she's not very good at reading cues. And so you need to be direct with her. And so I hope that Quincy is able to give that back to her.
yeah, I think he also really needs, like, acts of service too because he really does wanna feel chosen, and that's, like,
Mhm.
his main thing, and I think acts of service and quality time really blend together well with him
Yeah.
because, I mean and also, like, what's the ultimate, like, act of service is, like, fighting on the court, like, the best way she knows how for his love. Like,
Yeah.
that is, like, the ultimate, like, proof, like, "I'm here for you," even though you're
Mhm.
engaged to somebody else, like, really laying it all out there. And I think she's really hesitant with service because she also doesn't wanna fall into the same cycle that she's seen her mom with her
Mhm.
dad. So I think that's something that she works in. She, like, learns more about herself and, like, I think they just learn more about what they need throughout. But
Mhm.
it's interesting. They cover a lot.
They cover a lot, exactly. So, all right, we've given our advice, Mercedes. If this couple did not take our advice, do you think they'd still be together in 5 years?
Yes, these 2 are together. Like, they have to be.
Mhm.
I just think, like, at the end, when you see him holding their baby, like, waving at her on the court, I'm
Yeah.
like, "Yes, these 2 are for together forever." Like, I think he really finds, I'm like, "Oh my god," like, he's just the dad. Like, that's, like, the perfect role, and she's out there
Mhm.
killing it, like,
Mhm.
playing professional basketball, like, really, like, they get what they want because he ultimately really just desires, like, emotional support.
Yeah.
And I think just, like, that stability of a partner, and she desires to be out there playing basketball, and, like, they do that together, and, oh my gosh, I love seeing their family. It makes me so happy.
It is very cute. I do think they are together in 5 years. I think they are just so authentically themselves when they're with each
Mhm.
other. And that's such a comfortable feeling, Mercedes. I feel like a lot of people have a hard time finding in a partner, just
Yeah.
someone who they can be so authentically themselves with. And so when you do find that person, make sure you hang on to them with all you got.
Yeah. It's
Because
also so oh, no, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say though, it feels like, something just to tie it back to normal people, something Marianne says in one of the episodes is that she feels like she's constantly trying on different characters with the boyfriend that she's with in there. And I just feel like that's something that maybe a little bit of us can all relate to, of just being with a person who we feel like we always have to be a different person around. So when you find that one person that you can just be yourself 100% around, like, that's really special. That's all I want to
Mm.
say.
I also think, like, it is really special that they found that with, people who, I don't know, they connect at 11 years old, and
Yeah.
I don't know, like, that's such an insecure time, and to find, like, trust and, like, find people who love you for you. I in a time that's, like, rooted like, you can, like, trace your whole history together, like, that's so crazy to me because you're really trusting everyone's, like, own individual evolution as they
Mhm.
grow, and it's also, like, such an embarrassing cringe time to, like, I don't know, fall in love with somebody, and she says it, she's like, "I've been in love with you since I was 11 years old," and that just says so much, and I don't know, like, I'm trying to think, I'm like, "Wow, could I love anybody I knew at 11?" And I'm like, "No, not any of
Mhm.
those 11-year-old boys I knew."
Trying to remember if I even remember any of the boys I knew at 11. Oh, such a long
I
time ago.
wish I could block them out of my memory.
All right, guys, we like to talk about Heartthrob, where we just gush about our favorite person in the movie. And I'm curious, Mercedes, of the people in this movie, who would you take home to meet to your family, to meet to to introduce to your friends?
I'm taking Quincy. He's such a good guy, and he's also just, like, gorgeous, like, so beautiful, and he's an athlete, which is just, like, adds a whole other thing. I don't know. I love an athlete. And but, like, he does seem like the type to only really open up to people who he's known for so long.
Mm,
So, I think that's why, like, it is jarring to see him engaged to Kira, because it's like, "How long have you been together? What's the depth of this?" Because I can't picture him like, his personality, like, meeting me and then, like, I don't know, like, he just seems so closed off to new people in a different
yeah.
way, and I think that's why, like, he's so strong with Monica, so I couldn't see him, like, really, like, putting himself out there with, like,
Mhm.
currently I don't know, like, if you were gonna date him, he I don't know if he'd be as open.
So, I feel like there aren't a lot of options in this movie, and the
No.
only reason I'm not going with the obvious choice of Quincy is because I cannot stand how cocky he is. It is just not my vibe. It is not who I am at all. It is not the type of company I like to keep. So, instead, I'm gonna go with Monica's sister, Lena, who is played by
Oh
Regina
my
Hall,
goodness.
just because, like, I love that she could braid, and I always have my hair in a protective style, and so she'd really come in handy, and I just love Regina Hall anyways, so she's who I would introduce to my friends.
How can you not love Regina Hall?
I know, she's great. Shout out Regina Hall, we love you. All right, guys, it's time to play Mary
Marry,
Screw
screw,
Kill.
kill.
All right, guys, we like to talk about who would marry, who would screw, who would kill. Here is the set, Mercedes: Quincy, Zeke, or Jason, who is Monica's homecoming date.
Oh my goodness. Ugh, this is hard. I think I'm gonna marry Quincy.
Hmm. Okay.
Uh, maybe I'll screw Zeke and I'll kill Jason.
You're gonna be surprised, Mercedes. I 100% agree with you.
Oh my god, really?
Your face, you're so excited.
I really didn't because you were looking at me like I was crazy.
I like to throw you off. That's what I like to do. Yeah, I would marry Quincy. I would screw Jason. And I would kill Zeke because we do not stand for a cheater. All right,
Mm.
we are not out here for cheaters. Not fun. All right, guys. Before we wrap up, we always love to bring in a pop culture moment, and I just want to say, like, something that's so interesting is you see Sanaa Lathan now as a 50-year-old, and she looks exactly the same as she
Yeah,
does in this movie.
she really
But
does.
if you're curious to see how beautiful Sanaa Lathan still is, you can see her on this latest season of Succession, which is also streamed on HBO Max. So after you're done watching Love and Basketball on HBO Max, you can head over to Succession and see her. And also, if we're talking about black rom-coms, I saw that Sanaa Lathan will be starring in the TV adaptation of The Best Man, which is another classic black rom-com that I love. Um, and it's starring two of the most beautiful men I've ever seen in my life,
Mhm.
Taye Diggs and Morris Chestnut. Ugh,
Gorgeous,
love them.
gorgeous.
Absolutely so gorgeous. Um, it's funny too because when I think of Omar Epps now, so I used to work at the network Stars, and we had a show there called Power, and
Mm.
I'd get to go to all the events and stuff because I was one of the few black employees, and I would always ask to go to the events because I like that cast. And Omar Epps is actually in the new Power saga called Raising Kanan, and I'm so mad that I like just missed him, and I won't be able to see him at the events because I don't work anymore. But I think that's so cool. So if you guys are interested in seeing Omar Epps now, go head over to Stars, watch Raising Kanan.
Yes, also, Love and Basketball was just added to the Criterion Collection last September, which is so major for all you cinephiles out there. So you can get
Yes.
the DVD and it comes with so many extra bonus interviews and all this stuff. I'm definitely gonna get it because I just need it for my shelf. I love it so much. I was so excited when they announced it because I was like, oh my goodness, because usually like see all these like off the cuff random like art films and then this
Mhm.
to be there, I was like, yes, I love it. They're speaking to me directly.
Exactly.
Also, so a lot of recent like interviews with Sanaa Lathan about Love and Basketball, like for the anniversary or something like that, they'll
Yeah.
kind of twist her words around and claim that she had an awful time on set or like hates the movie because
Mhm.
she stated how challenging the audition process was, like going against these real athletes. But she's
Yeah.
never said she hated the movie. She was exhausted from the audition. So please, if you're out there and you're writing these headlines for clickbait, please stop because you're
There's not.
misinterpreting her quotes. She's
Yeah.
never done nothing but rave about this movie. So
Yeah, I've never heard anything negative come from this movie,
yeah,
period, so
exactly. And speaking on that, like
Mhm.
this movie has inspired so many creatives that like we admire and who inspire all of us today. Like Issa Rae, she said
Mhm.
in multiple interviews how this movie made such a huge impact on her, and it's one of the main reasons that she started telling stories and creating in general. So, like, without this movie, like, where would we be without Insecure and, like, without Issa Rae and all of the more all the other works she's done, all her other projects, and so many more creatives out there, like, that's why inclusivity and representation matter so much because then you get so many other stories from that.
100%. Said it before, we'll say it again. Representation matters.
Yes.
But listeners, we would love to know, what movie shows a proper representation of the Black community or whatever community you're a part of. Tell us, do you love and basketball? What sport would you love to fall in love through? You can slide to our DMs at MeetQ. Again, I have been Kendra. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Kenta in Hollywood.
Yes, and I've been Mercedes. You can find me at MercedesGB11. And if you're looking for new rom-coms, follow Me Cute wherever you listen to podcasts and follow Me Cute on all socials everywhere. Bye, guys.
We'll see you next week.